There are photos that capture the beauty of life, fleeting moments that we don't want to forget. The memory becomes a frozen moment in time, tangible evidence we can point to when our memory deceives us. But every now and then, a photograph is taken that does more than just capture a memory. Some images instead capture something unsettling. In today's episode, we head back into the world of unexplained photographs for the fourth time, where 5 more mysterious photos defy logic and challenge our reality. Throughout history, experts have tried to offer logical solutions for what you're about to see, but some believe these photographs might hold the key to understanding the unknown, unsolved, and unexplained. Are they mere accidents of the camera lens, carefully crafted hoaxes, or evidence of forces beyond our comprehension? Sit back, grab your seat by the fire, and prepare for a journey into the unexplainable. Welcome back to Fireside Unsolved, episode 109, 5 Mysterious Photos That Cannot Be Explained, part 4. In 2008, a kayaking tourist made a discovery that would fascinate the imaginations of explorers, historians, and mystery enthusiasts. While paddling through the remote islands of Canada's Pacific Rim National Park Reserve, she stumbled on what appeared to be a face etched into a towering cliffside. Amazed, she snapped a few photos before making her way back to shore. But when she tried to retrace her route, its exact location slipped from her memory. Despite her best efforts and even the searches of others intrigued by her story, the mysterious face in the rocks remained elusive, until now. After 2 years of tireless searching, Hank Gus, a member of the Sechot First Nation, has finally rediscovered the face that once seemed lost to time. Hidden on Reeks Island, one of the Broken Group Islands in British Columbia, this remarkable natural formation stands an impressive 7 feet tall, according to reports from ABC News. Gus observed that the face bears an uncanny resemblance to a wooden carving that adorns the door of the Sechot Administration Office, a striking connection to the rich cultural heritage of his people. "It's pretty noticeable from the water. It's quite large," Gus told CTV News. "But it's high up on the cliff, and the surrounding rocky terrain makes it really difficult to access. The dangerous landscape has likely contributed to why it remained hidden for so long." The Broken Group Islands are part of the ancestral lands of the Sechot First Nation, a place their people have called home for thousands of years. Hank Gus, a Sechot beachkeeper, dedicates his time to educating visitors about the area's rich history and geography. Ever since he first heard the tourist's tale of the mysterious face, Gus made it his personal mission to find it. And now, after years of searching, it has finally been located. With the discovery in hand, the Sechot First Nation is collaborating with Parks Canada to investigate its origins. Mother Nature can create some remarkable things, and this face is no exception, remarked Matthew Payne, Parks Canada's First Nations program manager, in an interview with ABC News. "We still can't say for certain whether the face was carved by human hands or if it's a natural formation. Given the deep connection that Sechot people have to this land, attention has now turned to exploring possible links to local oral traditions. The Sechot have lived here for millennia, so we're working closely with them to see if any stories or histories might shed light on the face's origins," Payne added. Whether a natural wonder or a man-made artifact, this rediscovered face stands as a powerful symbol of the mysteries that lie hidden in the wilderness, waiting to be uncovered. In 1872, American photographer William Mumler captured what is now famously known as the Ghost of Abraham Lincoln photograph. In the eerie image, a faint, ghostly figure appears to be standing over seated Mary Todd Lincoln, widow of the late president. Many who saw the photo believed the spectral figure to be none other than Abraham Lincoln himself. Mumler was no stranger to spirit photography, having pioneered the genre a decade earlier in 1862. His methods puzzled even fellow photographers like J.W. Black, who closely observed Mumler's process, yet could not explain how the ghostly figures appeared in his images. Despite growing skepticism, Mumler's career thrived, especially during the American Civil War, when the immense loss of over 600,000 lives fueled a widespread desire for spiritualism, as grieving families sought solace in the idea that their loved ones could still be seen through the lens of spirit photography. Throughout the 1860s, William Mumler was repeatedly accused of fraud, with the allegations culminating in a highly publicized trial in May 1869. The prosecution proposed several possible ways Mumler might have faked his ghostly images, including the use of double exposure. Yet despite their efforts, none of these techniques could be conclusively proven, leading to Mumler's eventual acquittal. While historian Mark Osterman later demonstrated a similar effect using two negatives and sleight of hand, the exact method behind Mumler's haunting photographs remains a mystery to this day. In February 1872, Mary Todd Lincoln, still in deep mourning nearly 7 years after her husband's tragic assassination, sat for a session with Mumler. After Lincoln's death, Mary's life had been marked by immense grief and personal struggles, including her institutionalization for mental health issues in 1875. She was eventually released into the care of her sister. Today, the infamous Ghost of Abraham Lincoln photograph is housed at the Ian Rowland Center for Lincoln Research, part of the Friends of the Lincoln collection at the Allen County Public Library in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Though the image has been widely debunked as a hoax, it remains one of the most iconic examples of 19th century spirit photography, a captivating artifact from an era where the lines between reality, grief, and the supernatural often blurred. In early 2015, Daylen Pua, a bright and friendly teenager from South Kona on Hawaii's Big Island, had big dreams of becoming a pastry chef. A senior at Kekula o Ehunui Kai Malino, a Hawaiian immersion school in Kealakekua, Daylen, affectionately known as Moke, was preparing to apply to culinary school after graduation. An avid outdoorsman, he frequently swam, hiked, and shared his adventures on social media. That February, while staying with his grandmother Martha Bear in Waianae for the weekend, Daylen set his sights on a notorious challenge, the Haiku Stairs, also known as the Stairway to Heaven. This iconic but illegal trail, with 3,922 steps winding up a steep ridge, had been officially closed for decades, yet still lured adventurers from all over the world. Originally built in 1942 by the U.S. Navy to support a radio station in Haiku Valley during World War II, the stairs gained popularity in the 1970s, thanks to a feature on Magnum PI, drawing curious hikers despite the trail's closure in 1987 due to safety concerns. Sections had deteriorated over time, making the climb even more treacherous. On February 26, 2015, Daylen told his grandmother he planned to hike in Moanalua Valley Park. When he mentioned the Haiku Stairs, she warned him about the dangers, especially after recent storms had washed out parts of the trail. But determined to experience the famed steps, Daylen packed his red backpack and set off. By late morning, Daylen had begun his ascent, posting updates and photos of his journey on social media. He sent several images directly to his family as well. But when he didn't return that evening, his grandmother's concern turned to fear. Knowing he had attempted the dangerous Haiku Stairs, she immediately contacted authorities. A massive search began the next morning with rescue teams from the Honolulu Fire Department, U.S. Navy, and volunteers combing the rugged terrain with drones, helicopters, and tracker dogs. But heavy rains and treacherous conditions hampered their efforts, making it impossible to reach the location where Daylen last shared his photos. The dogs struggled to pick up a scent, and visibility was limited. On March 2nd, a few days into the search, hikers on the Haiku Stairs reported hearing cries for help from below the trail, raising hopes that Daylen might still be alive. However, thick clouds and dangerous terrain prevented rescuers from locating the source of the calls. Despite the extensive search, which officially ended on March 3rd, Daylen was never found. His family, refusing to give up, continued searching for 2 more days with the help of volunteers. But the harsh, unforgiving conditions made it clear how perilous the trail had become, even for experienced hikers. No trace of Daylen, his body, phone, or backpack, was discovered. In the days following his disappearance, Daylen's family revisited the photos he had sent during his hike. In one haunting image, a man appeared crouched in the background, raising concerns that Daylen may have been followed and possibly harmed. The Honolulu Police Department took this discovery seriously, launching an investigation and issuing an alert to the public for help identifying the man. Although a Reddit user later claimed the man was a friend who had already spoken to the police, this was never officially verified. Authorities ultimately stated that they did not believe foul play was involved. The prevailing theory is that Daylen slipped and fell off the unstable trail, as many parts had become dangerously eroded. There were unconfirmed reports of a light seen on the mountainside the night after his disappearance, possibly from his iPhone's flashlight, though night hiking was common in the area, and the sighting couldn't be definitively linked to him. Nearly a decade later, the mystery of Daylen Pua's disappearance remains unsolved. His body and belongings were never recovered, leaving his family with more questions than answers. The haiku stairs, still closed to the public, stand as both a symbol of Hawaii's natural beauty and a reminder of the tragic risks that come with chasing adventure. For Daylen's loved ones, the hope for closure endures, as they hold tight to the memory of the kind, adventurous young man who set out to conquer the stairway to heaven, but never returned. In the early 20th century, a mysterious figure known as Little Oscar became a fixture of the lore surrounding the Beta Theta chapter of the Delta Tau Delta fraternity at the University of the South. Little Oscar undeniably existed, as photographic evidence attests. One of the most famous images of the mummy was even featured in the October 1940 issue of Life magazine, granting it an eerie kind of fame. Little Oscar, described as approximately 3 feet tall and curled in a fetal position, had skin that appeared cracked, brittle, and rough, resembling something baked and molded. His unsettling appearance added to the intrigue, sparking rumors about his origins. Was this truly an ancient mummified body, or had fraternity students created something far more sinister? Dr. David Hurst, curator of the American Museum of Natural History's Mummies exhibit, may have provided the key to unraveling the mystery. After inspecting photographs of Little Oscar, Hurst suggested that the mummy was not real, but rather an elaborate creation, likely crafted by fraternity students using papier-mâché and other materials. The cracks and texture of the skin, Hurst pointed out, were consistent with artistic crafting rather than authentic mummification. The last known reference to Little Oscar dates to 1952, after which he mysteriously vanished. The prevailing theory is that college students may have stolen the mummy as part of a prank, but its fate remains unknown. To this day, the whereabouts of Little Oscar are lost to history, leaving behind only photographs and a peculiar chapter in the university's strange and fascinating lore. The mysterious death of Janet Johnson, a Denver woman who vanished nearly 50 years ago on Aconcagua, the tallest peak in the Western Hemisphere, has resurfaced following a climber's startling discovery: her long-lost camera, preserved in a receding glacier. This camera, embossed with her name and Denver address, was found in February 2020 on the Polish glacier near the summit of the 22,831-foot-tall Argentine mountain. Johnson's disappearance in 1973, alongside NASA engineer John Cooper, captivated the world, and many speculate that their deaths, officially marked as accidents, may involve foul play. The camera, along with a collection of her belongings, including a decomposed arm, a watch, down mittens, a red jacket, and a canister of Kodak film, was recovered from the glacier. Remarkably well preserved, the film was passed to the New York Times, which published the haunting images as part of a renewed investigation. The collection includes 24 images from the camera and 36 more in the canister, all offering a chilling glimpse into the expedition's final days. The photos document the climbing crew's progression up the mountain, including 3 frames captured the night before Johnson's tragic death. The clarity and composition of the images suggest that Johnson was not suffering from the severe effects of altitude sickness, which commonly impair coordination and judgment. In 1973, an 8-person American expedition aimed to summit Aconcagua, the highest mountain outside the Himalayas. Janet Johnson, a highly experienced climber and one of the first 20 women to conquer all of Colorado's 14,000-foot peaks, was part of the group. However, the climb quickly descended into chaos due to personality conflicts, illness, and varying ability levels, ultimately leading to only 4 team members making a summit attempt. Johnson and Cooper, who had contributed to guiding NASA's lunar module for the Apollo missions, perished just above the high camp under suspicious circumstances. Contradictory accounts from Johnson's colleagues fueled speculation, with some claiming she had fallen down the glacier, leading to her death. Yet when her body was recovered in 1975, investigators found her with a battered face, bloodstains on her jacket, and a large rock placed on her body in the middle of an ice field, details inconsistent with a simple fall. Her arm, left in the ice during recovery, was only found decades later alongside her camera. Cooper's death was equally perplexing. He was discovered frozen on the mountainside during his descent, with an autopsy revealing a mysterious round hole in his abdomen that pierced his spine, an injury that raised doubts about the initial speculation that he had simply fallen onto his ice axe. The unsettling nature of their injuries reignited theories of foul play. Daniel Araujo, an assistant to the medical examiner who performed the autopsies, stated, "They were killed, both of them. These kinds of injuries were not self-inflicted." The possibility of murder, rather than tragic accident, has gained traction with these recent discoveries. However, John Shelton, the last surviving member of the expedition, dismissed the foul play claims as hogwash. The newly recovered photographs offer fresh glimpses into the ill-fated expedition, intensifying the mystery surrounding Johnson and Cooper's deaths. Nearly 5 decades later, the question of what truly happened on Aconcagua remains unsolved, leaving behind more questions than answers. As we wrap up this 4th installment of our exploration into 5 mysterious photos that defy easy explanation, we hope that these photographs in this episode have sparked your curiosity and left you pondering what could be hidden within them. Each photograph carries with it a story, a question, and a sense of intrigue that reminds us of the mysteries still lurking in the shadows of our world. Which photo left the biggest impression on you? We invite you to share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Fireside Unsolved, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on our latest explorations. Join us next time as we continue to unravel more of the mysterious and unexplained throughout our world and history. Thank you for watching, and remember to stay safe.
Jeffrey Mitchell had always dreamed of serving and protecting his community. On March 26, 2000, that dream became a reality when he pinned on his badge and officially joined the police force in Sacramento, California. But no one could have predicted how his story would end, a routine shift that took a sudden, dark turn, leading to questions that, even today, remain unanswered. What happened to Deputy Jeffrey Mitchell, and why is this cold case still unsolved? Let's investigate and see what we can discover together. Welcome to episode 110, The Unsolved Murder of Deputy Jeffrey Mitchell. In the early hours of Friday, October 27, 2006, the roads of rural Sacramento County were eerily quiet. The vast open land stretched out in every direction. Deputy Jeffrey Mitchell was on routine patrol that evening, keeping the streets of Sacramento County safe, when he came upon the quiet intersection of Dillard and Mice Roads, just off rural Highway 16. The clock in his cruiser read 3:27 a.m. when something unusual caught his eye. A white Chevrolet van, idling in the darkness, without any license plates. It wasn't all that uncommon for Deputy Mitchell to encounter strange vehicles on these rural backroads from time to time, but something about this one seemed different. The van was out of place and in a part of the county where few ventured at this hour of the night. From his patrol vehicle's computer, Deputy Mitchell calmly contacted Sheriff's Dispatch, noting that the vehicle appeared to have a single occupant, and for the moment, everything seemed okay. The dispatcher acknowledged the message. All seemed normal, just another routine encounter on his patrol. Until just 7 minutes later, a strange and unusual sound came over the radio, a series of clicks, static, and silence. No words at all. Dispatch, sensing something was off, tried calling Deputy Mitchell's radio, but no response, just silence. Dispatch then dialed his cell phone, thinking there may be a radio malfunction, but, again, nothing. With no response from Deputy Mitchell, the dispatcher had no choice but to make the call no one ever wants to make, issuing a Code 3 alert, lights, sirens. All units were ordered to head to Deputy Mitchell's last known location immediately. What had started as a routine stop was now a potential emergency, with Deputy Jeffrey Mitchell's fate hanging in the balance. Without knowing the situation at the scene, time was slipping away, and every second mattered. The first deputy arrived on the scene at exactly 3:27 a.m. The flashing lights cut through the darkness, illuminating a horrible sight. Deputy Jeffrey Mitchell lay motionless on the cold asphalt by the rear bumper of his own patrol car. It was a terrible scene. Jeffrey Mitchell, a devoted officer, a loving husband, and incredible father, now laid on the road, lifeless. He had been shot, execution style, with his own service weapon. The quiet rural road had become the setting for an unthinkable tragedy. Deputy Jeffrey Mitchell was just 38 years old when his life was brutally taken on that October night in 2006. A short time later, his wife, Crystal Mitchell, was jolted awake by the sound of loud, frantic knocking at her front door. She rushed to the door, her heart pounding, only to be met by a group of police officers. Crystal could see that their faces were pale and full of grief. Among them stood the department chaplain, and in that moment, Crystal's world was shattered. Before a single word could be spoken, she understood what had happened. A scream tore from her throat, filling the silence of the night as the devastating truth hit her. Her beloved husband was gone. As officers rushed Crystal to the hospital to say her final goodbye, the world outside seemed to blur. Electronic highway signs flashed ominously overhead. Officer shot, white Chevy van, no plate. Each sign a reminder of the nightmare unfolding in real time. Unfortunately, when they arrived at the hospital, it was too late. At 4:45 a.m., Deputy Jeffrey Mitchell was declared deceased. Grief weighed heavy as they handed Crystal the badge her husband had worn on his last patrol. As she turned it over, something caught her eye. Laminated on the back was a small photo of her and their 6-year-old son, Jake, carefully placed inside. A silent reminder of the family he cherished, placed right by his heart on every shift. The manhunt was on for the white Chevy van that Deputy Mitchell reported encountering before his tragic murder, and it was massive. Law enforcement swarmed the area, determined to catch whoever had committed such a heinous act. Evidence at the scene revealed signs of a violent struggle, painting a picture of desperation and chaos. "This may be a hunch and we may never have the answer," then Sacramento County Sheriff John McGinnis told reporters. "But it is my belief that something heightened his response because it looks like he had begun to handcuff a suspect." In that moment, Deputy Mitchell found himself in a fight for his life. Struggling to maintain control of his service weapon, he ultimately lost his grip. In the blink of an eye, the suspect seized the opportunity, shooting Mitchell once in the head before getting back into the van and vanishing into the night. Investigators held on to hope that finding the van would lead them to the killer. But just 12 hours after Deputy Mitchell's death, the van was located, but the mystery only deepened. The van was discovered half submerged in the Cosumnes River. Inside the van were the lifeless bodies of Alan E. Schubert, 43, and Nicole Ann Welch, 28. Both had died due to carbon monoxide poisoning. Detectives pieced together a timeline of the events, and assuming the driver had obeyed the speed limit, it would have taken about 27 minutes to reach the location in the river from where Deputy Mitchell found the van on the night he was killed. The evidence suggested they had driven straight to the river after murdering Deputy Mitchell, perhaps in a frantic attempt to get rid of the van and erase any traces of their involvement in the crime. Initially, detectives were certain that either Alan Schubert or Nicole Welch, or perhaps both, had a hand in Deputy Mitchell's murder. But as the investigation progressed, they found that neither showed signs of trauma. There were no visible wounds, despite the violent struggle that had seemingly taken place. The implication was chilling. Schubert and Welch were almost certainly dead in that van before Deputy Jeffrey Mitchell even encountered his murderer on that October night. "My hope and belief was that we'd find some trauma, indicating that Schubert fought with our deputy, but there was none," Sheriff McGinnis confessed. It seemed like the more they uncovered about the victims in the van, the more questions surfaced. Alan Schubert was not a stranger to police. Over the previous decade, he had racked up a troubling history of charges: vandalism, DUI, and drug possession, to name a few. Family members noted that he hadn't driven with a valid license in at least 10 years. However, they insisted he wasn't prone to violent crime. His mother, Carolyn Rogers, emphasized that Schubert had always accepted the consequences of his actions. On the day he died, Schubert had been using his van as a makeshift home and workplace, taking his friend Nicole Welch to visit her friends. He didn't plan on being gone for very long, with an upcoming court appearance in Sacramento looming over him. When questioned about the possibility that Schubert might have taken his own life, his girlfriend said that wasn't even a remote possibility. They had plans to move in together, a future they were both excited about. So with the two victims now ruled out as suspects for the murder, authorities began to close in on the most logical place for their suspect to live: the small town of Wilton, the nearest community to the murder. With a population of just 4,500, almost everyone became a suspect, and the atmosphere in Wilton grew tense. A web of connections and suspicions began to weave tightly around the town, leaving investigators to wonder who could be hiding in plain sight. "A lot of people are getting paranoid that the suspect is here in town. He's one of us, and we're rubbing elbows with him. That's kind of a spooky thought," said local resident Johnny Shackelford, capturing the unsettling atmosphere that had settled over the small town of Wilton. As deputies canvassed the area, they knocked on doors and conducted interviews, even returning to one particular man's residence 4 separate times. Each visit brought renewed hope they'd find the killer, as they collected DNA samples to compare with evidence gathered from the crime scene. But despite their efforts, no arrests were made. Year after year, leads dwindled, and the question of who had killed Deputy Mitchell lingered. In 2020, the sheriff's office reignited its public plea for information, a renewed effort to uncover the truth after 14 long years. "We have made a lot of strides," Detective Tony Turnbull said. "To say there are no suspects or persons of interest would be lying to you. We've looked at people strongly, and they have not been ruled out yet." Despite this glimmer of hope, shadows of doubt still linger over the case. The quest for justice has remained frustratingly out of reach. For those with any information regarding the tragic deaths of Alan Schubert, Nicole Welch, and Deputy Jeffrey Mitchell, the call to action remains. Each piece of information could be the key to unlocking the truth behind this haunting case. Tips can be submitted via the Sheriff's Office website, sacksheriff.com, or by calling 916-874-TIPS. You can remain 100% anonymous when providing your tips, and call takers are available to take your tips 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. The unsolved murder of Deputy Jeffrey Mitchell, along with the deaths of Alan Schubert and Nicole Welch, remains an open wound in the community of Wilton and the larger Sacramento County area. With each year that passes, the details of that fateful October night in 2006 echo in the hearts and minds of those left behind. As investigators continue to seek answers, the hope remains that someone will come forward, shedding light on a case that has haunted so many. Until then, uncertainty looms, a haunting presence that binds this small community together in their search for justice for Deputy Jeffrey Mitchell. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Fireside Unsolved. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Fireside.
On this episode, we're diving into a case about a Canadian man found dead, far from home, in a hotel parking lot in Knoxville, Tennessee. His name was Blair Adams, and his final days on this earth were as mysterious as they were tragic. We'll look into what may have driven this man to leave his friends, family, and his country behind to go on a journey that would ultimately cost him his life. Prepare yourselves for a story that will challenge your perceptions and leave you wondering, what really happened to Blair Adams? Welcome back to Fireside Unsolved, episode 111, The Unsolved Death of Blair Adams. On July 5, 1996, Blair Adams, a 31-year-old resident of Surrey, British Columbia, began exhibiting behavior that can only be described as peculiar and alarming. Without any apparent reason, he suddenly withdrew nearly all the money from his bank account. But that was just the beginning of his strange actions on that seemingly ordinary July day. Not content with just emptying his bank account, Adams then turned his attention to his safe deposit box. He methodically removed everything of value: cash, jewelry, gold, and platinum. With his life savings literally on his person, Blair Adams then made his way to the border, attempting to enter the United States. However, he chose an unusual entry point, taking the ferry from Victoria, British Columbia, to Seattle, Washington. This odd route into the U.S. hit a snag. The large amount of cash and valuables he was carrying immediately raised red flags with immigration officials. After further investigation, and upon discovering that Blair had previous convictions for illegal substances and assault charges, they denied him entry. This rejection, however, did not deter Blair. For him, it was merely the beginning of a journey that would become increasingly bizarre. Just days later, in the early hours of July 9, 1996, Blair found himself once again in a precarious situation. This time, he was stopped by Canadian Border Patrol officers as he attempted to cross the Pacific Highway border on foot. Border Patrol immediately noticed his disheveled appearance, and it obviously raised red flags. His legs and hands were covered in scratches. Authorities noted these injuries, and it was suggested he had been involved in a physical altercation or had encountered some sort of danger during his attempt at crossing the border. To complicate matters further, Blair Adams matched the description of a suspect linked to a nearby car theft that had recently taken place. The stolen vehicle had been discovered abandoned not far from the crossing, raising suspicion about Blair's involvement in the crime. Despite these curious circumstances, especially given the implications of his injuries, Blair adamantly denied any connection to the vehicle theft. Blair maintained his innocence, insisting he had no part in the crime, and ultimately, with no evidence against him, they were left with no choice but to once again let him go free. And with that, Blair Adams again returned to Canada. After his first two, almost comically poor attempts to cross the border, Blair was still as determined as ever to enter the United States. Just a day later, on July 10, 1996, he finally succeeded in entering the United States. For his third attempt, Blair rented a car, a Nissan Altima from Vancouver International Airport, and simply drove across the border in the early morning hours. Possibly even more perplexing, however, was Blair's actions once he arrived. He had driven straight to Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, and when he arrived, he promptly purchased a round-trip ticket to Frankfurt, Germany. This choice raised eyebrows among investigators, as Blair had previously worked in Frankfurt for his stepfather's construction company, except he never boarded that flight. Instead, in a sudden change of plans, Blair traded his ticket for a one-way flight to Washington, D.C. He landed in Washington at Dulles Airport around 6:45 a.m. When he arrived, he rented a Toyota Camry and began driving south. His destination was Knoxville, Tennessee, a place where he had no known connections. During this 500-mile drive, Blair's erratic behavior continued to deteriorate. While driving through Troy, Virginia, he backed his car into another vehicle, causing minor damage. The other driver later told detectives that Adams seemed nice but was in a hurry. At around 5:30 p.m. on the evening of July 10th, Blair Adams found himself stranded at a BP gas station on Strawberry Plains Pike in East Knox County, Tennessee. He approached the clerk, visibly frustrated, claiming he couldn't unlock his rental car. Enter Gerald Sapp, an interstate repair service driver, called on to assist Blair with his car troubles. Sapp quickly realized the root of Adams' problem. He was attempting to use the Nissan Altima key on his Toyota Camry rental. When Sapp suggested Blair check his pockets for the correct key, he oddly refused. It was as if he was deliberately avoiding the simple solution. Unable to resolve the issue, Sapp arranged for the car to be towed to a local auto repair shop and dropped Blair off at a nearby Fairfield Inn. But Adams's odd behavior was far from over. Security footage captured Blair lingering in the hotel lobby for approximately 40 minutes. He paced, fidgeted, and seemed lost in thought, almost in a trance. Finally, he approached the front desk and purchased a room, handing over a $100 bill. But when the clerk tried to give him his change, Blair abruptly turned and walked out. It would later be discovered that Blair would never even step foot into the room he'd just paid for. The following morning, as dawn broke on July 11, 1996, a group of construction workers arrived at the site of an under-construction Country Inn and Suites hotel in Knoxville, Tennessee. Little did they know that their ordinary workday was about to take a horrifying turn. At around 7:30 in the morning, they stumbled upon the body of a man, laying there in the hotel parking lot. It would turn out to be Blair Adams. The scene before them was as puzzling as it was gruesome. Adams's body was found in a state of undress, his clothing partially removed. Beside him, as if carefully placed, were his shoes and socks. But it was what surrounded the body that added an extra layer of mystery. Scattered around Blair's body were various currencies: American dollars, Canadian dollars, and German marks totaling an amount nearly $4,000. This wasn't a simple robbery gone wrong. The presence of such a large amount of cash, carelessly left around Blair Adams' body, immediately raised red flags. What could possibly have transpired in this parking lot that would lead to such a bizarre crime scene? As investigators arrived and began to process the scene, it quickly became clear that this case would be anything but straightforward. Every answer they uncovered seemed to create a dozen new questions. The discovery of Blair Adams in that Knoxville parking lot was just the beginning of one of the most perplexing mysteries in Tennessee's history. The autopsy report from the University of Tennessee Medical Center painted a picture of Blair Adams' final moments. His body bore numerous cuts and abrasions, suggesting a fierce struggle. Possibly the most shocking injury of all was a violent blow that had ruptured his stomach, leading to sepsis, the official cause of his death. In addition, Blair had suffered a severe wound to his forehead, likely inflicted by something heavy, like a crowbar or club. Even more disturbing, there were clear signs that he had been assaulted before his death. Despite the violent nature of the attack, robbery appeared unlikely considering there was nearly $4,000 in various currencies surrounding Blair's body on the ground. Nearby, investigators found a black duffel bag containing maps and travel receipts, and a fanny pack holding an assortment of valuables: gold bars, coins, and jewelry. The only piece of physical evidence collected from the scene was a single strand of long hair, tightly clutched in Blair's hand, leaving many to wonder who it belongs to. In interviews with Blair's mother, it was revealed that he had been behaving strangely in the weeks leading up to his departure from Canada. And while Blair did have a previous substance abuse problem, friends and family members noted that he had been sober for 2 years at the time of his death, but had recently stopped attending Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. Upon further investigation, Blair had confided to friends that he felt someone was trying to kill him and had told his mother that someone had been spreading rumors about him. These unsettling claims only added to the mystery of Blair's final days. Despite the lack of solid leads, a composite sketch was released, depicting an unknown man that 2 women claimed to have seen conversing with Blair outside a Cracker Barrel restaurant near the Fairfield Inn where he was staying. This mysterious figure has never been identified. In a 2010 interview with local law enforcement, officials revealed that the Knoxville Police Department had never received a credible tip regarding the circumstances surrounding Blair Adams's death. However, the Knox County Cold Case Unit is still reviewing evidence to this day, in particular the strand of hair found at the crime scene. This piece of DNA could potentially lead to new developments if a match can be found, but as of now, there have been none. If you have information related to Blair Adams's unsolved case, please contact the Knox County Cold Case Unit at 865-215-2243, or by submitting an anonymous tip on www.knoxsheriff.org. Today we're going to explore a collection of mysterious audio recordings that continue to baffle everyone that hears them. From investigators, true crime enthusiasts, even historians. These 5 pieces of audio evidence have left even more questions than answers. From desperate calls to 911 to eerie voicemails and even a possible transmission from space, each of these recordings holds secrets. So settle in as we listen to some of the most unsettling and still unsolved audio recordings in history. Welcome to Fireside Unsolved, episode 112, 5 mysterious audio recordings. On the evening of August 8, 2013, Brandon Lawson returned to his San Angelo, Texas residence after not coming home the night before, an absence that worried his live-in girlfriend of 10 years, Ledessa Lofton. Their relationship, already strained by Brandon's past substance abuse, became more tense when Ledessa voiced her suspicions of Brandon possibly relapsing. Though Brandon had claimed 6 months of sobriety, Ledessa doubted him, and it was later revealed by his brother Kyle that Brandon had, in fact, started using again. In an effort to remove himself from the situation, at around 11:30 p.m., Brandon called his father in Crowley, Texas, stating that he planned to come over and stay with him that night. By 11:54 p.m., Brandon had set off in his silver F-150 truck toward his dad's house. At approximately 12:30 a.m., Brandon contacted his brother Kyle, explaining that his truck had run out of gas on U.S. Route 277, somewhere between San Angelo and Bronte, Texas. But what really alarmed Kyle was Brandon's next sentence. He said that 3 people were chasing him out of town. Kyle, suspecting his brother might be hallucinating from his recent relapse, was concerned but unsure whether to take Brandon's claims seriously. Nonetheless, he rushed to Brandon's location, bringing with him a full gas canister. As Kyle drove, he tried to keep Brandon on the phone, but the conversations were becoming fragmented with frequent disconnections. Between 12:50 a.m. and 1:15 a.m., several calls were made between Brandon, Kyle, Ledessa, a neighbor, and 911. But the poor cell reception in the area made communication difficult. One notable call from Brandon to 911 around 12:54 a.m. was recorded.
911 emergency.
Yes, I'm in the middle of the field. The safe just pushed some guys over. Right here going towards Javelin on both sides. My truck ran out of gas. There's one car here that got chasing to the woods. Please hurry.
Okay, now run that by me. One more.
I'm not talking to him. I actually ran into him.
Ah, you ran into him. Okay.
That's the first guy.
Do you need an ambulance?
Yeah, no, I need the cops.
Okay. Is anybody hurt? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Just 2 minutes later, a passing trucker reported Brandon's truck parked dangerously on the road to 911. A sheriff's deputy arrived at the scene shortly after 1 a.m., finding only Brandon's abandoned truck and his brother Kyle, who arrived around 1:10 a.m. and was still on the phone with Brandon. Brandon insisted, "I can see you, I'm right here." Yet neither Kyle nor the deputy could locate him. Kyle suspected Brandon might be hiding to avoid arrest, as he had an active warrant at the time. Around 1:18 a.m., Brandon briefly answered another call from Kyle, sounding breathless and claiming he was bleeding, but the call was once again cut short. After waiting 45 minutes without spotting his brother, Kyle left a gas can in Brandon's truck and headed home. He returned around 5 a.m., but the gas can was untouched, and there was still no sign of Brandon. By 8 a.m., Brandon's truck had been towed. In the days following, a search of the area near Brandon's truck yielded no leads. It wasn't until February 4, 2022, that a significant development occurred. The Texas Rangers, along with search teams, discovered clothing matching Brandon's description and human remains near his last known location. While DNA testing was still ongoing as of October 2024, the remains are widely believed to be Brandon's, hopefully bringing some closure to his long unsolved disappearance. In 1957, brothers Achille and Giovanni Battista Giudica Cordiglia from Turin, Italy, built an amateur space listening station using a repurposed World War II bunker called Torre Bert. Their goal was to intercept communications from Soviet and American space missions. At the time, the Soviet Union, known for its secrecy, only publicized successful space missions, hiding any failures to protect their image during the Cold War space race. The brothers claimed to have intercepted transmissions from undisclosed Soviet missions, including a chilling recording in May 1961 of a female cosmonaut in distress. The woman's voice, filled with fear, described intense heat, suggesting her capsule was burning up during re-entry. If true, she would have been the first woman in space, but the mission was never acknowledged. Skepticism about the recordings quickly arose. Critics pointed out linguistic inconsistencies and questioned the technical plausibility of their claims. There was also confusion about the dates. The brothers first stated they recorded the cosmonaut in November 1963, but later revised it to May 1961. While some accused the brothers of fabricating the recordings for fame, they have always maintained their authenticity. To this day, the legitimacy of their claims remains controversial, either exposing hidden Soviet space tragedies or being an elaborate hoax. In September 2015, 31-year-old Henry McCabe spent a night out with friends at a Minnesota nightclub. Around 2:30 a.m., Henry's wife, Corinne McCabe, received a disturbing voicemail from his phone. The recording, nearly 2 minutes long, contained eerie noises, growls, moans of pain, and a calm voice at the end saying, "Stop it." The meaning of these sounds remains unclear, but is believed to hold clues to Henry's disappearance. Authorities traced Henry's last known movements. A friend reported dropping him off near a gas station around 2 a.m., but after that, Henry vanished. Despite extensive searches, no trace of him was found. Police couldn't rule out any possibilities, whether Henry disappeared voluntarily, was involved in an accident, or was harmed. The cryptic voicemail was sent to the FBI for analysis, and the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension also joined the investigation. 2 months later, in November 2015, Henry McCabe's body was found in Rush Lake, New Brighton, Minnesota. Nearly 10 years later, the mystery remains unsolved, leaving friends, family, and authorities searching for answers about what really happened to Henry and the strange sounds captured in his final call. Antoinette Cayadito, born on December 25, 1976 in Gallup, New Mexico, was a fourth grader living with her family at 204 Arnold Circle when she disappeared on April 6, 1986. That night, her mother, Penny, went out with friends while a babysitter watched Antoinette and her sisters. Penny returned around midnight and sent the sitter home. The next morning, Penny discovered Antoinette was missing. After searching the neighborhood, she contacted the police, but they didn't officially search the home until 4 days later. Penny later mentioned that a man named Emiliano Emo Gardella had given Antoinette flowers several times before her disappearance, a fact she initially withheld. A year after Antoinette's disappearance, a girl claiming to be her called the Gallup police, saying she was in Albuquerque.
Police department. Hello.
I'm Antoinette Cayadito.
Okay, whereabouts in Albuquerque?
Who said it could use a help?
Hello? Antoinette, where are you?
Penny believed the voice was her daughter's, though she didn't recognize the adult voice heard in the background. In 1994, Penny made a startling confession, suggesting she and Emo might have been involved in Antoinette's abduction. She even admitted to instructing Antoinette to open the door the night she was taken, but was never charged despite FBI suspicion and failing a lie detector test. Penny passed away in 1999, followed by Antoinette's father, Anthony Montoya, in 2012. Police believe Penny withheld key information, and many suspect Antoinette was taken with her knowledge. A potential sighting of Antoinette occurred in 1991 at a restaurant in Carson City, Nevada. A teenage girl resembling Antoinette, accompanied by a disheveled couple, repeatedly dropped her utensils, gripping the waitress's hand each time. After the group left, the waitress found a napkin with the messages, "Help me," and "Call the police." Despite these leads, Antoinette Cayadito's fate remains unsolved. On August 17, 2010, 20-year-old Amber Tucaro, a mother from Fort McMurray, Canada, traveled to Edmonton with her infant son and a friend for a short vacation. The following evening, Amber was last seen around 8 p.m. getting into a vehicle with an unknown man, a decision that would spark a long-lasting mystery. During the ride, Amber received a phone call that was recorded by the caller.
Where are we by?
We're just heading south of Beaumont, or north of Beaumont.
We're heading north of Beaumont. Yo, where are we going?
Just
No, this is
the back road.
Are you kidding me? You better not be taking me anywhere I don't want to go. I want to go into the city. Jeez. Yo, we're not going into the city, are we? No, we're not.
Yes.
Then where the f*** are these roads going to?
50th Street.
50th Street. Are you sure?
Absolutely.
Yo, where are we going?
50th Street.
50th Street?
50th Street.
East, right? Over now.
Bravo.
Now.
Despite efforts, the male driver's voice remains unidentified. Investigators later determined that instead of heading toward Edmonton, as the driver claimed, they had traveled south into rural Leduc County. 2 years later, on September 1st, 2012, horseback riders discovered Amber's remains in a Leduc County field. Dental records confirmed her identity, ending the search that had haunted her family and friends. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police faced significant criticism over their handling of the case, and in 2014, the Tuccaro family filed a formal complaint with the Civilian Review and Complaints Commission for the RCMP. Amber had been prematurely removed from the missing persons list based on unverified sightings, and key evidence, including a suitcase of her belongings, was accidentally destroyed. Crucially, the RCMP never interviewed the woman who traveled with Amber, neglecting an important witness. In July 2019, Deputy Commissioner Curtis Zablocki acknowledged the investigation's failings, calling it not our best work. However, the Tuccaro family rejected the apology, feeling it came too late and didn't fully address the harm caused. Today, Amber Tuccaro's case remains unsolved. The recorded voice of the unknown man continues to haunt her family, leaving them and the community searching for answers about what really happened to Amber, a young life tragically cut short. As we reach the end of our journey through these unsettling and mysterious audio recordings, we are left with more questions than answers. Brandon Lawson's desperate last call, the eerie transmissions of the lost cosmonaut, Henry McCabe's unexplainable sounds, Antoinette Cayadito's haunting voice on the phone, and Amber Tuccaro's chilling conversation. Each case offers a small glimpse into a terrifying moment frozen in time, yet none of them have revealed the full truth. These voices, filled with fear and confusion, serve as haunting reminders of the unsolved mysteries that still grip us. For the families and loved ones involved, the recordings are painful memories of what might have been. For investigators and enthusiasts alike, they are fragments of stories that remain incomplete, begging for closure. Though the truth behind these recordings may remain unknown, at least for now, they stand as a testament to the human experience. They challenge us to listen more closely, to search more deeply, and to never give up hope that one day the silence will be broken and the truth revealed. Until then, these voices will continue to echo in our minds, haunting us with what we don't know and reminding us that some mysteries were possibly never meant to be solved. The morning of February 2nd, 2008 began like most others did in the quiet Chicago suburb of Tinley Park, Illinois. That was until a horrifying and violent crime occurred at a Lane Bryant clothing store that ultimately left 5 women dead. The case that shocked the nation with its brutality has remained an unsolved mystery since the day of the murders. It's left a void in the community, filled with open questions and a profound sense of loss for those personally affected. Despite a thorough investigation, numerous leads called into police, and media attention, the killer has never been caught. On this episode, we look at the facts of the case, the theories, and lasting impact on the Tinley Park community. Welcome to Fireside Unsolved, episode 113, The Unsolved Murders of Tinley Park. February 2nd, 2008, was a cold but otherwise ordinary Saturday morning when shoppers began trickling in and out of the stores in the Brookside Marketplace Shopping Center in Tinley Park, Illinois. One of these was a Lane Bryant outlet store, one of several popular clothing chains in the area, drawing a steady stream of customers, especially on weekends. By 10 a.m. that morning, the Lane Bryant store had only a few customers inside, along with a couple employees preparing for the day's business. At approximately 10:15 a.m., an unknown man entered the store. The details of what followed are somewhat murky, but we do know that the man was posing as a delivery person. Once inside the store, he pulled out a gun and announced a robbery. The gunman ordered those present, 6 women, 4 customers, and 2 employees, into a back room of the store. In what seemed like an organized attempt to control the situation, the man bound the women with duct tape, at which point the crime appeared to be a robbery. During the robbery, store manager Rhoda McFarland was able to call the police without drawing suspicion. 911 received the call at 10:45 a.m., and that audio has been made public by Tinley Park Police. The audio is short and cuts in and out, but you can hear the voice of the still unidentified suspect.
911 emergency.
I'm looking at bullshit.
After the call, something went terribly wrong. For reasons that still remain unclear, the gunman opened fire on the women, killing 5 of them, execution style. Within minutes of the 911 call, law enforcement officers arrived at the scene and immediately cordoned off the area to begin their investigation. Unfortunately, the gunman had already fled the scene and the damage had been done. Inside, when police entered the back room, they found 5 deceased victims. 42-year-old store manager Rhoda McFarland, 37-year-old Connie Woolfolk, 34-year-old Jennifer Bishop, 33-year-old Carrie Hudek-Chuso, and 22-year-old Sarah Safransky. Investigators later revealed that one of the women had been assaulted before her murder, though they did not disclose her identity. Incredibly, a 6th woman, whose name has also been kept from the public, survived the massacre. She was a part-time employee, and her survival made her the key witness in the case. According to reports, she managed to shield herself during the killings, and after the nightmare ended, she provided crucial details to the police, details that would become essential in the investigation. The surviving woman described the gunman as an African-American male, between the ages of 25 and 39, approximately 6 feet tall, with a husky build. He wore a dark-colored winter coat, a knit cap, and jeans. His hair was in thick cornrows with a receding hairline and a single braid adorned with 4 light green beads draped over the right side of his face, resting at cheek level. Her remarkable courage in recounting these details under extreme trauma led to the creation of a composite sketch, a vital piece of evidence that would shape the ongoing hunt for the killer. Forensic investigators meticulously combed through the Lane Bryant store searching for any clues that might lead them to the suspect. Despite the chaotic nature of the crime, the gunman had been careful. He left behind very little forensic evidence, no clear fingerprints, and frustratingly, no security footage of the attack. The store's surveillance system had been malfunctioning that day, robbing the investigation of a critical lead. However, investigators did recover some shell casings and a few minor pieces of evidence, all of which were sent for analysis. The forensic team determined that the weapon used was a .40 caliber handgun, a common model that, unfortunately, did not offer many additional insights. The killer's use of duct tape to bind the victims indicated a disturbing level of premeditation and control. This wasn't a crime of impulse, it was methodically planned. Surveillance footage from a neighboring Target store captured the parking lot outside the Lane Bryant on that fateful morning. This footage was handed over to NASA video enhancement expert Dr. David Hathaway for analysis, and his review uncovered 2 vehicles that could hold the key to solving the case.
Evidence is released in the Lane Bryant shootings that police hope will bring them closer to catching the killer. Tinley Park Police released these grainy photos yesterday. They were taken the day of the murders from a video camera at a nearby Target store. If you look closely, you can see a small, dark-colored SUV in front of the building. Police don't know if the vehicle was involved in the murders, but they do want to track down its owner.
We're not going to make out people's faces. We're not going to make out license plates from that distance, but we can make out makes and models of cars, and we can see cars coming and going at crucial times.
On February 2nd, a gunman opened fire inside the Tinley Park store, killing 5 women and injuring another. Police have released a sketch of the suspect, but have not been able to figure out who he is. If you have any information about the shooting, you are urged to call police by dialing the number there on your screen.
Dr. Hathaway notes that at 10:39 a.m., just minutes before the chilling 911 call from inside the store, a van or SUV pulls up and parks directly in front of the entrance. 1 minute later, at 10:40 a.m., another vehicle arrives and parks nearby. What makes this even more intriguing is what happens next. At 10:45 a.m., the second vehicle drives off, followed less than a minute later by the first. The timing of their departures eerily coincides with the moment police believe the killer fled the scene. In an effort to crack the case, the South Suburban Major Crimes Task Force enlisted the help of former U.S. Marshals Service Supervisory Inspector Ed Farrell to assist in identifying the potential suspects captured on the surveillance footage. There was one camera on a Target store that was able to capture some footage of the front of the store, and right around the time of the shootings, two vehicles pulled up, an SUV and a sedan. And it's believed, one of the theories is he engaged in shooting, he had accomplices, they came out front and they sped away. Because they pulled up simultaneously and left in the same amount of time. And little known is there was an officer in the Target parking lot when they went down. And when the 911 call came through, they dispatched the officer from Target, so he was only a minute or 2 minutes away. So in that small window, somehow, he was able to get out of the store. Detectives are now hoping that technology can help enhance the grainy images so they can identify these vehicles. Investigators believe the occupants might not only be crucial witnesses, but could potentially be tied to the killer himself. These vehicles could hold the missing piece that finally unlocks this unsolved mystery. The complexity and brutality of the Lane Bryant murders at Tinley Park have left investigators, families, and the community grappling with numerous theories, each exploring different aspects of the case. The first theory that some investigators believe is that the gunman had reasons for targeting that specific Lane Bryant store and its victims. This theory suggests that the gunman may have had a connection to one or more of the women present that morning, perhaps stemming from a personal grievance, jealousy, or unresolved issues. Alternatively, others argue that the attack was a random act of violence, a robbery gone wrong. In this theory, the gunman may have targeted the store for its perceived vulnerability, particularly knowing it would be staffed by women, and the shoppers were women as well, with limited security, if any. Some theories suggest that the gunman may have had a history of criminal activity or previous offenses, which could explain his calculated approach during the robbery. This means he may have previously entered the store, familiarizing himself with the layout and its security vulnerabilities, which aided in the robbery and getaway. But even if that was the case, why murder the women? Criminal profilers have speculated about the psychological makeup of the shooter, with some believing the act could indicate a deeper psychological issue, such as a desire for control or power, which led to the execution-style killings. This theory suggests the shooter might have enjoyed inflicting fear and chaos, indicating a more sinister motivation beyond simple financial gain. Investigators have also explored whether the Lane Bryant murders might be connected to other unsolved crimes in the area. They have examined the modus operandi of other violent offenders to see if there are similarities that could link the cases. If connections are found, it may indicate a pattern or a serial offender operating within the region. Some have theorized that the gunman may have entered the store intending to target a specific person, resulting in a tragic case of mistaken identity. This theory would suggest that the gunman believed one of the victims was someone he had a dispute with or held a grudge against, leading to a planned attack that escalated unexpectedly. The last theory posits that the robbery and murders were meant to distract law enforcement from another, potentially larger criminal activity occurring simultaneously. This could involve crimes such as a large-scale movement of illegal substances or even a trafficking operation, where the Lane Bryant robbery would serve as a diversion. As time passes and as technology advances, there may be hope for new leads or evidence that could bring closure to this tragedy. Until then, the case remains unsolved. The Tinley Park Police Department has additional details about the case on its website, and a $100,000 reward, half of which was donated by Lane Bryant's parent company, is still offered for any information leading to the arrest of the shooter. And notably, this reward is not contingent upon a conviction. If you have any information that could help in solving the Tinley Park murders, please contact the Tinley Park Police tip line at 708-444-5394 or email them at lanebryant.tipline@tinleypark.org. Any tip, large or small, could be the missing link in solving the murders of February 2, 2008. Have you ever looked up at the night sky and felt a profound sense of wonder? For as long as humans have existed on Earth, we've been mesmerized by the stars, the planets, and the vast mysteries of the universe. Beyond our solar system, countless galaxies swirl with stars, planets, and cosmic phenomena, many of which remain beyond our understanding. In this episode, we'll uncover the powerful connections between space, our planet, and the very essence of humanity. We'll dive into celestial events that have not only altered the course of history, but have also shaped our world, inspired cultures, and ignited the human imagination. From ancient impact craters left by civilization-threatening meteors and asteroids to cosmic mysteries that left generations baffled, like the appearance of the Crab Nebula in 1054 and the eerie spectacle that unfolded over Nuremberg in 1561. Join us as we blast off on a journey through both the pages of Earth's history and the depths of the cosmos. Together, we'll explore 5 of the most mysterious, awe-inspiring, and deadly astronomical events ever witnessed. This is Fireside Unsolved, episode 114, 5 Mysterious Celestial Events. On September 15, 2007, the small village of Carancas in southern Peru became the site of a highly unusual meteorite impact. At around 11:45 a.m., a bright fireball lit up the sky, witnessed by locals as a luminous object with a smoky tail. It was observed at a low altitude, about 1,000 meters or 3,300 feet above the ground, before crashing into the Earth with an estimated force equivalent to 4 tons of TNT. The resulting explosion left a crater 13.5 meters, or 44 feet wide, and nearly 6 meters, 15 feet deep. The impact was powerful enough to register as a minor earthquake on Peru's seismological network, and nearby structures weren't spared. The force shattered windows at a health center half a mile away and damaged buildings from debris thrown into the air. What truly set the Carancas impact apart were the strange events that followed. Villagers quickly gathered around the still-steaming crater, only to report feeling unwell shortly after. They observed water boiling in the muddy crater, and many began experiencing nausea, vomiting, headaches, and skin irritation. Even police officers who arrived to investigate felt ill, sparking fears of toxic substances being released from the meteorite. As more people fell sick, physicians were forced to set up additional medical tents to handle the surge in patients. The illnesses, along with the deaths of nearby livestock, prompted concern over water contamination, and locals temporarily halted drinking from nearby sources. 4 days after the impact, most of the villagers had recovered, but questions remained. Scientific investigations revealed that the meteorite, despite its small size, roughly 10 feet in diameter, struck with extraordinary kinetic energy, likely because the high altitude of the impact site in Peru reduced its atmospheric drag. This allowed the meteor to maintain higher speed and temperature upon impact, making the ground unusually hot. Further research indicated that the illnesses were likely caused by toxic sulfuric vapors or other gases released from beneath the surface due to the intense heat of the impact. The Carancas event, while relatively small by space object standards, caused significant disruption and attracted global attention for its unusual aftermath and scientific implications. The Qiangyang event, also referred to as the Qiangyang meteor shower, occurred in 1490 in what is now Gansu Province, China. Historical records from the Ming Dynasty describe the event as a catastrophic meteor shower that allegedly claimed the lives of around 10,000 people. However, this figure is often debated by historians, as official Ming Dynasty documents do not specifically mention the casualty numbers, leaving room for speculation about the event's actual death toll. Despite this uncertainty, the Qiangyang meteor shower is generally agreed to have caused significant destruction. The event is thought to have been triggered by a large meteor shower or possibly an airburst from a disintegrating asteroid, similar to the Tunguska event of 1908. The Tunguska event in Russia, the largest impact event on Earth in recorded history, occurred when a celestial object exploded in Earth's atmosphere, causing widespread devastation but leaving no impact crater. Despite the uncertainty surrounding some of the details, the Qiangyang event remains one of the most mysterious and destructive meteorological events in recorded history. Its scale, potential human toll, and unique place in ancient records continue to captivate scientists and historians today. We've already dedicated an entire episode to this event on the channel, and we'll link it in the top right if you'd like to dive deeper. While we cover more details in that full episode, it's such a strange case that we felt it deserved a mention in this one as well. The 1561 celestial phenomenon over Nuremberg was a remarkable event that took place on April 14, 1561. Witnesses reported a dramatic aerial battle involving numerous unidentified flying objects appearing in the sky at dawn. The spectacle began with what seemed to be various shapes emerging from the sun, described as spheres, cylinders, crosses, and other unusual forms, which engaged in what looked like combat for over an hour. Eyewitness accounts detailed the appearance of hundreds of these objects, some darting around and others colliding in midair, culminating in a loud crash. Eventually, the objects appeared to fall to the ground in clouds of smoke. Although there were no confirmed physical remnants found after the event, it was vividly illustrated in a news article published shortly after. Theories regarding this phenomenon range from religious interpretations to natural explanations like atmospheric conditions or swarms of insects. Carl Jung, the renowned psychiatrist, suggested that the event could be seen as a manifestation of collective anxiety rather than extraterrestrial encounters. This mysterious event has sparked considerable debate over the centuries, leaving many to wonder what truly unfolded in the skies of Nuremberg on that fateful day. Strangely, this would not be the only event like this in that decade. A similar event occurred in Basel, Switzerland 5 years later, indicating that such celestial phenomena were not isolated incidents. In 1566, just 5 years after the celestial phenomenon over Nuremberg, Basel, Switzerland became the site of another mysterious event. According to the Basel pamphlet of 1566, basically the newspaper of the time, the skies over the city displayed strange and unsettling phenomena. Witnesses described unusual sunrises and sunsets, with red and black balls appearing in the sky. These spheres seemed to move and fight with one another before the rising sun. The dramatic spectacle left the city's inhabitants baffled and concerned, with many interpreting it as a sign of impending doom or divine intervention. Historian Samuel Coxius documented these events, noting that the first occurred on July 27th, followed by similar phenomena on July 28th and August 7th. During these days, local observers reported that the sun lost its brightness, taking on a reddish hue similar to blood. On August 7, 1566, large black spheres appeared to dash across the sky with remarkable speed and precision, leading to reports of what seemed like an aerial battle. The Basel event is often discussed in conjunction with the Nuremberg incident of 1561, as both events were interpreted by some as potential UFO sightings, with the spherical shapes being identified as unidentified flying objects. Others speculate that these celestial events were natural atmospheric phenomena, such as sundogs or mass optical illusions. However, in an era of religious upheaval and fear of divine retribution, many people at the time viewed these sky spectacles as apocalyptic warnings. The event, like the 1561 Nuremberg sighting, continues to intrigue both historians and enthusiasts of mysterious events in our past, as it highlights the impact that unexplained celestial phenomena had on the imaginations and anxieties of early modern Europeans. In 1054, a monumental celestial event took place that would leave a lasting mark on the universe, Earth, and human history. A supernova explosion in the Taurus constellation gave birth to what is now known as the Crab Nebula, one of the most famous astronomical objects in the sky. This stellar explosion was so luminous that it was visible to the naked eye during the day for nearly a month and at night for around 2 years, appearing 6 times brighter than Venus. Historical records from Chinese, Japanese, and Arab astronomers extensively document this guest star. But curiously, no European records of the event have been found, despite its brilliance. The explosion was likely witnessed by a global audience, with various cultures offering different interpretations of the phenomenon. For the astronomers in China's Song dynasty, this was an event of major significance, and they meticulously documented its position and duration. Middle Eastern observers also noted its presence in their skies, adding to the diverse accounts of this extraordinary event. The Crab Nebula itself is the remnant of this supernova, expanding over time into the cloud of gas and dust we observe today. Spanning about 11 light-years across and continuing to expand at a rate of 1,500 kilometers per second, the nebula remains a source of fascination for modern scientists. Its glowing tendrils of gas shine across the electromagnetic spectrum, from visible light to radio waves and X-rays. This broad spectrum of radiation has made the nebula a treasure trove of information for astrophysicists seeking to understand the life cycle of stars. Over a millennium after its creation, the Crab Nebula continues to captivate scientists and stargazers alike, offering a glimpse into both the explosive past and the enduring mysteries of the universe. As we've discovered in this episode, the universe has left a lasting impact on humanity, with each celestial event inspiring both awe and mystery. From the Caracas impact event in Peru to the Qingyang event of 1490 in China, the strange skies over Basel and Nuremberg in the 1560s, all the way back to 1054 when a supernova illuminated the night, each of these events serves as a powerful reminder of the influence that space and its cosmic objects have over our planet. Though separated by time and geography, these celestial phenomena share a common narrative. They showcase the dynamic relationship between Earth and the cosmos. The skies above have always been a source of wonder, fear, and inspiration, and these events highlight how much we still have to learn about our universe. As we continue to investigate these otherworldly occurrences, one thing remains constant. Our fascination with the stars and the mysteries they hold will never fade. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history and the infinite cosmos. Be sure to subscribe, like, and share if you enjoyed this episode, and stay tuned for the next one. Fireside.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Fireside Unsolved. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to help the channel grow. Until next time, take it easy and be easy, you filthy bastards.
Welcome back to Fireside Unsolved, where we uncover the unexplained, the unsolved, and the downright bizarre. In this episode, we're celebrating Halloween with part 2 of our series on mysterious audio recordings. We'll start with the chilling confession linked to Tracy Kirkpatrick's unsolved murder, followed by a disturbing call to the Howard Stern show from someone claiming to be a serial killer. Then we'll unravel the strange phone calls that Gary Sudbrink received, explore the eerie space music heard by the Apollo 10 astronauts, and end with the bizarre 96.7 FM broadcast that rattled Portland, Oregon. Are these strange recordings clues to unsolved mysteries, hoaxes, or something far more disturbing? Grab your headphones and coffee and join us as we dig into these unexplained recordings on Fireside Unsolved, Episode 115, 5 Mysterious Audio Recordings, Part 2. On March 15, 1989, 17-year-old Tracy Kirkpatrick was working alone, in charge of closing the small clothing store she worked part-time by 9 p.m. At approximately 11 p.m., a security guard noticed that the lights were still on in the store. When he checked the front door, he found it open. Upon searching the store, he found Tracy in the back storage room, deceased. The scene was gruesome, and Tracy was stabbed multiple times. The police investigated various leads, including friends, family members, and local residents, but nothing substantial emerged. Then, something strange happened. In 1991, 2 years after Tracy's murder, a man identifying himself as Don called a nationwide crime tip line.
Hello, my name is Don, and I'm calling from Frederick, Maryland. I know this is going to sound surprising, but 3 months ago, I stabbed a girl to death. And you might think that in making this tape, I'm setting myself up to be caught, but there are a lot of guys named Don in Frederick. The girl I killed was working in a ladies' sportswear store. I often came by and talked to her when she was working alone. And one night when she was in the storeroom and we were talking, our conversation turned into an argument. And so I took out a knife that I have with me at all times, and I killed her. And a few days later, I realized that I had created a lot of sadness. And I thought about turning myself into the police. But whatever they do to me, that won't bring Tracy back. So I decided that I better keep free because we have the death penalty in Maryland. Thanks for listening. I'm sorry about what I did, but nothing can change it. Bye.
His description matched the circumstances of Tracy's murder, and he offered information that was not widely known to the public at the time. Police immediately attempted to trace the call and investigate further, but despite their efforts, Don was never identified, and no further leads came from the confession. Some investigators believe Don's confession could have been genuine, while others speculate that it could have been a hoax by someone who had read or heard details about the unsolved murder. Tracy Kirkpatrick's murder remains unsolved, and the confession remains a clue that has yet to bring closure to her case. The Howard Stern Show was notorious for its outrageous and unfiltered content, especially in the 90s and early 2000s. But specifically in August 1997, the show became the stage for something far more sinister, a call that would leave the listeners stunned. On August 13th, 1997, a man who identified himself as Clay called into the Howard Stern Show. At first, he seemed like just another fan calling in to banter with Stern, but as the conversation unfolded, the tone quickly turned dark.
And then what, you strangled him?
Once.
How else did you kill him?
Well, a few times, actually, most times with a hammer.
And where do you do this primarily?
I've done it twice in a parking garage, and then the rest of the times on the side of the road.
And you're from the New Orleans area?
Yes.
And how, I mean, what do you beat them to death with a hammer?
Man.
That usually only takes once, and
Dude, you got to have a lot of anger in you.
yes.
Man. Dude, you're a serial killer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
What made this call so incredibly cold and eerie was the matter-of-fact way in which he spoke about his alleged crimes. There was no boasting or theatrics. He sounded calm, almost detached, while recounting his supposed actions. The call immediately raised questions. There were no specific details about locations or names that could directly connect Clay to any known crimes at the time, but the way he spoke, emotionless, left a lasting impact on everyone who heard it. Even Stern seemed unsettled, probing Clay for more information while maintaining a balance between disbelief and concern. Despite efforts to trace the phone number used to call, the man known as Clay was never identified. To this day, the question lingers. Was the man who called in really a serial killer? Or was he just an elaborate prankster playing on listeners' morbid fascination? In February 1993, a man named Gary Sudbrink, a U.S. Air Force officer from Long Island, New York, experienced one of the strangest and most unnerving series of phone calls ever recorded. On February 8, 1993, Sudbrink was visiting his family in Long Island. Everything was normal until, while staying at his parents' house, the phone rang. When Sudbrink answered, he was greeted by a voice that sounded strange, to say the least. The caller asked, "Why aren't you answering your phone? We've been trying to reach you." Confused, Gary pointed out that he had answered the phone, but the voice continued to press him, almost as if the person on the other end was expecting something different from him. Sudbrink, baffled by the strange interaction, ended the call but soon received more, each one stranger than the last. What makes the Sudbrink case particularly compelling is that he recorded several of the calls. Sudbrink later shared the tapes, hoping to find some answers.
Yes, this is me. Can I speak to you? Can I ask why you're... Yes, can I ask why you're calling? Can I please ask? Yes, this is. Yes, that is me. Say that again? This planet. Leave? We come. I'm staying right here. To be within this planet. Is this a joke or what?
While the recordings certainly sound bizarre and inexplicable, no concrete evidence has ever surfaced that can explain their origin. Many people have analyzed the recordings, but the calls remain as mysterious now as they were in 1993. In May 1969, just 2 months before Apollo 11's historic moon landing, the crew of Apollo 10 undertook a vital mission to test the spacecraft intended for lunar exploration. While the mission proceeded smoothly, an eerie incident occurred that has puzzled scientists and enthusiasts for decades. The astronauts reported hearing space music while orbiting the moon's far side. Apollo 10, the fourth manned mission in the Apollo program, served as a dress rehearsal for Apollo 11. Crew members Commander Tom Stafford, Lunar Module pilot Gene Cernan, and Command Module pilot John Young were tasked with flying to the moon, separating the lunar module and descending to within 50,000 feet of its surface. During their passage behind the moon, communication with Earth was lost for about an hour. During this radio blackout, the astronauts began hearing strange noises over their headsets, described as a whistling that resembled music. The bizarre sounds were captured on audio recordings, which remained classified for years before being released to the public, sparking intrigue and speculation.
That music even sounds outer spacey, doesn't it? You hear that? That whistling sound?
Yeah.
Woo! Look at your... Yeah, it sounds like, outer space type music. Hey, Tom, is your insulation all burned off here on the front side of your window over here? Right? Yeah. Mine's all burned off. Heading out here, where are you, John?
Despite NASA's explanation of radio interference being widely accepted, the incident continues to fascinate those intrigued by the mysteries of space travel. Portland, Oregon, known for its quirky culture and misty landscapes, became the setting for one of the strangest radio mysteries in modern times. In 2017, a series of strange and cryptic broadcasts on the 96.7 FM frequency in Portland began transmitting without warning or explanation, baffling listeners and raising speculation about their origin. The broadcasts were not only bizarre but downright unsettling, filled with random noises, garbled speech, strange beeping sounds, and at times, distorted music. As these broadcasts continued without official acknowledgement or explanation, theories ranging from government experiments to pirate radio stations and even alien contact took hold, cementing 96.7 FM's broadcasts as an unsolved audio mystery. What made the broadcast particularly odd was their lack of any clear identification. In the U.S., most radio stations are required to give call signs or station IDs at regular intervals, but 96.7 FM offered none. This sparked initial theories that it could be a pirate radio station, a common occurrence in Portland's underground music scene. Yet, there was something distinctly unusual about these transmissions, something more unsettling than your average rogue station playing indie music or political commentary. As interest in the broadcast grew, amateur radio hobbyists and curious locals attempted to track down the source of the transmissions. Using radio direction-finding techniques, some claimed that the signal appeared to be moving, which led to speculation that the broadcasts were being transmitted from a mobile source, such as a vehicle. Despite these efforts, no one was able to conclusively pinpoint where the broadcasts were coming from. The FCC, which oversees and regulates radio frequencies in the United States, was made aware of the strange transmissions. However, there was no public indication that the FCC had launched a formal investigation. Given the relatively low power of the signal and its seemingly random nature, the broadcast may not have been considered a significant priority for regulators. After months of erratic transmissions, the mysterious broadcasts on 96.7 FM began to fade away as suddenly as they had appeared. By summer 2018, reports of the strange noises dwindled, and eventually, the frequency returned to regular, unremarkable programming. No official explanation was ever provided, leaving the mystery of 96.7 FM's broadcasts unresolved. We've heard some strange and mysterious audio recordings, from the chilling confession of Tracy Kirkpatrick's murder, the unsettling claims of a possible serial killer on The Howard Stern Show, Gary Sudbrink's odd phone recordings, the unexplained space music captured during the Apollo 10 mission, and the bizarre broadcast from 96.7 FM in Portland, Oregon. Whether a still unsolved confession, unexplained phenomenon, or a bizarre transmission, these recordings remind us that there are some baffling mysteries out there waiting to be uncovered. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing, and share the episode or channel with your fellow mystery enthusiasts. And hit that notification bell so you don't miss any episodes.
On a quiet June morning in 2001, a 19-year-old Nebraska native set out on what should have been a routine walk to meet a coworker at his old high school. But he never arrived. And since that day, no one has seen or heard from Jason Jolkowski again. Today, we're exploring one of the most baffling disappearances we've covered so far. A young man who left home for work and simply vanished. Jason's case has haunted his family, friends, and investigators for over 2 decades. Despite exhaustive searches, countless interviews, and a trail that's gone cold, his story remains an unsolved mystery. But behind this tragic disappearance is also a story of hope and resilience, a family determined to seek answers and help others who find themselves in the same nightmare. Join us as we unravel the events leading up to Jason Jolkowski's disappearance, the theories surrounding his case, and the lasting legacy his family has built in his name. Welcome to Fireside Unsolved, Episode 116, The Unsolved Disappearance of Jason Jolkowski. Jason Jolkowski was the kind of person you might not notice right away, but once you did, you'd never forget him. Born on June 24, 1981 in Grand Island, Nebraska, Jason was the eldest of 2 boys, raised by Jim and Kelly Jolkowski in a close-knit, hard-working family. Described by his parents as considerate and generous, Jason wasn't one to seek the spotlight. He preferred to keep a low profile, but when it came to helping others, he always stepped up. Kelly, his mother, would often recall how Jason would go out of his way to lend a hand, even to strangers. He was shy, quiet, and deeply introspective, yet his intelligence shone through in unexpected ways. Jason didn't have a large circle of friends, but those who knew him spoke highly of his kind and gentle nature. In many ways, Jason was wise beyond his years, with a quiet strength that was easy to overlook. By the early 2000s, Jason Jolkowski found himself at a crossroads. He had put a pause on his college education at Iowa Western Community College in Council Bluffs, Iowa. A tough decision, but one that made sense at the time. His family simply couldn't afford the cost to keep him enrolled. Still, Jason didn't let that stop him from pursuing his passion. While attending college part-time, he worked as a DJ for the school's radio station. For Jason, this wasn't just a hobby, he actually loved it. And for a while, he dreamed of making a career out of it with hopes of becoming a radio DJ for KIWR, a station that served the Omaha metro area. But dreams have to wait sometimes, and Jason knew that. He was determined to go back to school when the time was right. In fact, he'd recently landed a job as a customer service representative at CTEL Corporation, a position that not only paid better than his current job, but also came with a tuition reimbursement program, a step toward making his dream a reality. But at least for now, life was simpler for Jason. He was working at Fazoli's, a local Italian restaurant, and living with his parents in the Benson neighborhood of Omaha, on the corner of 48th and Pinckney Streets. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a stepping stone. It was the morning of June 13, 2001, and 19-year-old Jason Jolkowski's day started like any other, until the unexpected happened. He received a phone call from Fazoli's, the local restaurant where he worked, asking if he could come in early for his shift. Jason, ever the reliable employee, agreed without hesitation. But there was a problem. His car was in the shop and wouldn't be ready in time. Walking to work wasn't exactly an easy option either. Fazoli's was over 4 miles away. Undeterred, Jason made arrangements with a coworker to give him a ride. They decided to meet at a familiar spot, Benson High School, a school both Jason and his coworker had once attended. It was only half a mile from Jason's house, a short walk from his home. At around 10:45 a.m., a neighbor, Chester Link, saw Jason outside, helping his younger brother bring the trash cans in from the curb. It seemed like a typical moment, just an ordinary task on a day like every other. Afterward, Jason was seen walking in the direction of Benson High School. By 11:15, his coworker had arrived at the school waiting to pick him up. 15 minutes passed, then 20. Jason never showed up. His coworker called his house concerned, thinking that maybe he was running late or had gone back home for something. But when she phoned, Jason wasn't there. It was like he had vanished somewhere in the short walk between his home and the high school. And from that moment on, Jason Jolkowski was never seen again. As hours turned into a full agonizing day, Jason's parents, Jim and Kelly Jolkowski, began to realize something was terribly wrong. But like so many other parents in that situation, they believed they had no choice but to wait. The common misconception that you must wait 24 hours to report a missing person held them back from contacting the police right away. It wasn't until the next morning that they made the call, desperate for help, yet unaware that those precious first hours were already slipping away. When authorities finally got involved, they initially brushed off the case. In their eyes, Jason was a 19-year-old adult and possibly had decided to run away from his life in Omaha. It took a staggering 10 days before investigators began treating his disappearance with any real urgency. But, in the meantime, Jason's family and friends never wavered. They knew him too well. Jason was not the type to run away. His family meant everything to him, and things in his life were on track. The mystery deepened when police looked into the area where Jason had last been seen. The 8 blocks between Jason's home and Benson High School were quiet, residential streets. Not the kind of place where someone could simply vanish without a trace. There was little traffic, no major disturbances, yet security camera footage from Benson High confirmed what no one wanted to believe. Jason never arrived at the school that day. When Jason left home that morning, it's believed he only had his cell phone and maybe $60 in his pocket. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Nothing was missing from his room. No signs that he had packed or planned to leave for good. As the days passed, police interviewed everyone they could think of, friends, family, neighbors, co-workers. But they were left with more questions than answers. No one had seen Jason after that brief moment when his neighbor spotted him walking toward Benson High School. No one reported any suspicious activity along the quiet streets that day. There were no leads, no clues, no sign of struggle. It was as if Jason had vanished into thin air. There was no forensic evidence to analyze, no circumstantial evidence to chase down. Jason's cell phone, silent, his bank account, untouched. There were no red flags in his life, no troubling behavior, no interest in partying, and no history of drug or alcohol use. Jason wasn't the type to fall into risky situations. With no other suspects and no evidence to follow, Jason's disappearance became a haunting mystery. A case with no answers and no trace of the 19-year-old who once seemed to have a bright future ahead. One of the officers involved in the case, a seasoned investigator with over 3 decades of experience, would later say that Jason Jolkowski's disappearance was the most baffling case he had ever seen. In a situation like this, where there are no witnesses, no evidence, nothing to work with, speculation is all that remains. And the leading theory, the one his family reluctantly believes, is chilling. They suspect that Jason may have been lured into a vehicle by someone that day, someone who had no intention of letting him return home. From there, the most likely scenario is grim, that Jason was murdered. The Omaha Police Department continues to classify the investigation as open and active, but after all these years, it's considered a cold case. Despite their best efforts, no promising leads have surfaced, and the mystery of what happened to Jason Jolkowski endures, casting a long shadow over the lives of those who knew and loved him. In the wake of their unimaginable loss, Jim and Kelly Jolkowski chose to channel their grief into action. They founded Project Jason, a nonprofit dedicated to providing assistance and support to the families of missing persons. Their mission is to ensure that no family ever feels as lost and helpless as they did in those early days of Jason's disappearance. But they didn't stop there. They lobbied tirelessly for Jason's Law, a measure that would have a lasting impact on how missing person cases are handled in Nebraska. In 2005, their efforts paid off when the Nebraska legislature passed the law, leading to the creation of a statewide database for missing persons, a crucial tool for families and investigators alike. Yet, despite the progress they've made in helping others, the pain of not knowing what happened to their own son never fades. Jim and Kelly remain hopeful that one day they will have the closure they so desperately need, the definitive answers about what happened to Jason. Now, over 2 decades later in 2024, the Omaha Police Department continues to investigate his case. But for Jason's family, the search for truth and for justice is far from over. Despite the tireless efforts of his family, friends, and law enforcement, the mystery of his disappearance remains unsolved. If you have any information about Jason Jolkowski's case, please contact the Omaha Police Department at 402-444-5600. Any tips could be the key to solving this cold case and bringing closure to Jason's family. Thank you for joining us as we continue to explore the stories of the unexplained and mysterious. On this series, we've explored some of the world's most mysterious photographs, and this episode is no different. Today, we will look at 5 more photos that defy logic and promise to haunt the imagination. Starting with the mysterious origins of the first man ever captured on film, we'll trace our way through the unexplained, like the unsettling image of a man with an axe on a boat, and the legend of the mummy rumored to be John Wilkes Booth. Then, we'll look into a haunting sketch of the elusive killer known as Mr. Cruel, before closing on the baffling Naga fireballs, an unexplained phenomenon that lights up the Mekong River. Each photo holds secrets, clues, and questions that remain unsolved to this day. Let's dive in and see where these photos take us on episode 117, 5 Mysterious Photos That Cannot Be Explained, Part 5. In 1838, along the bustling Boulevard du Temple in Paris, an anonymous man paused for a quiet moment to get his shoes shined. Little did he know that this simple, unremarkable act would forever immortalize him in history. Captured by Louis Daguerre in the earliest known photograph to feature a human figure, this man, whose name and story we'll likely never know, stands out as a clear silhouette against the background of a Parisian street. He's forever frozen in time, an ordinary passerby who by chance became a part of something extraordinary. To be included in this image, he had to hold perfectly still for nearly 7 minutes, the duration necessary for Daguerre's innovative process to record and develop the photograph. Meanwhile, others in the scene moved too quickly to be fully recorded in the exposure. The shoeshine boy who worked at his feet is only a faint blur, and the bustling street behind them, filled with carriages, people, and the daily activity of Paris, is mostly lost to the motion of the subjects. However, closer inspection of the photo reveals hints of some that remain, an impression of a child's face in a distant window, what might be a dog across the street, and perhaps even a faint outline of 2 women and a cart. But it's this man that's standing calmly with one foot propped on the shoeshine kit, who has unknowingly become a focal point in this landmark image. Who was he? Maybe he was on his way to work, possibly wasting time before meeting a friend, or simply enjoying a stroll. When you can come to terms with never knowing who he was, his intentions, his thoughts, or his life story, he becomes more than just a figure in a photograph. He's a connection to a world long gone, a witness to the birth of photography itself. It started with a seemingly ordinary job, a dock worker snapping photos of an old military frigate set for decommissioning. But what he captured has left people questioning what, or who, might still linger on board. The man who shared the eerie image described how the vessel had been stripped of its sensitive equipment and left open for dock workers to prepare for scrap. The foreman, a man by the name of John, was the first to board, documenting areas with a camera as he moved through the ship's dark, hollowed corridors. Later, John sent the photos to his boss, but one of them raised immediate alarm. His boss called John asking, "Who's the guy with the axe in the photo?" Confused, John explained that he hadn't seen anyone else on board, and with only one secured entry point, a gangway watched by CCTV, no one else should have been there. Due to the vessel's military history, the police were called to investigate. They combed the ship from end to end but found no trace of any intruder. There was no evidence of forced entry or any sign of a stowaway, and CCTV showed no movement on or off the vessel. Curiosity took hold online, where users examined the photo. After users began editing the photo to get a better look at what was hiding in the shadows, they revealed a haunting figure, seemingly clutching an axe, appearing to be looking around a corner. The mysterious figure has left an impression with those that have seen the photo. It's a good reminder that even the most deserted places might not be empty after all. In 1877, Texas lawyer Finis L. Bates was called to the bedside of a dying man by the name of John St. Helen, who whispered a shocking confession, "I am John Wilkes Booth, the assassin of President Lincoln." St. Helen claimed he had escaped the manhunt after Lincoln's assassination, asserting that the man who died in a Virginia tobacco barn was not Booth, but someone else. Bates kept St. Helen's confession private until 25 years later, when a headline in a Memphis newspaper caught his attention. A drifter named David E. George had been found dead in an Oklahoma hotel room after taking arsenic, claiming to be John Wilkes Booth as his last words. Bates recognized George from a photograph. It was John St. Helen. Intrigued, Bates traveled to Oklahoma to find George's embalmed body displayed in a mortuary. Convinced it could be Booth, Bates published a book in 1907 detailing St. Helen's account and gained custody of the body, which he leased to carnivals as the mummy of John Wilkes Booth. This bizarre attraction was plagued with misfortune. Showmen exhibiting the mummy faced financial ruin, and in 1920, a circus train carrying it wrecked, killing 8 people. At one point in time, the mummy was even kidnapped for ransom, and Union veterans threatened to steal it, vowing to kill Booth again. After Bates died, his widow sold the mummy to showman William Evans, who displayed it with a sign proclaiming, "See the man who murdered Lincoln." Despite efforts to revive its tours, Evans faced fines for teaching false history. In 1930, carnival owner John Harkin purchased the mummy, offering $1,000 to anyone who could prove it wasn't Booth. No one collected, but skeptics remained. A group of doctors examined the mummy in 1931, claiming it bore injuries consistent with Booth's. By the late 1970s, it disappeared, possibly into a private collection. The mystery of Booth's death persists, with some family members advocating for exhuming his grave for DNA testing, requests denied by the courts, leaving the story of the mummy as one of America's strangest unsolved tales. In the shadows of Melbourne during the late 1980s and early 1990s, a figure known only as Mr. Cruel instilled terror in the community. This moniker, originating from a newspaper headline from The Sun, embodies the chilling nature of his crimes. Mr. Cruel is linked to the attacks on 3 young girls and is the prime suspect in the abduction and murder of a 4th victim, Carmine Chan, in 1991. Despite extensive investigations, he remains unidentified, leaving the cases surrounding his confirmed attacks and suspected murder unsolved. Authorities have offered a reward of 200,000 Australian dollars for information about the abductions, increased to 1 million Australian dollars in 2016, equivalent to approximately $130,000 and $657,000 US respectively. Described as highly intelligent, Mr. Cruel meticulously planned each attack, conducting surveillance on his victims and their families while leaving no forensic traces. He covered his face, used clever tactics to divert attention, and exhibited a disarming demeanor, often taking breaks to eat during the assaults. However, the police sketch is a terrifying image created from descriptions provided by his victims. The terror began on August 22, 1987, in Lower Plenty, where he broke into a home, armed with a knife and handgun, and tied up the parents, leaving their young daughter vulnerable. On December 27, 1988, in Ringwood, he abducted a 10-year-old girl after binding her parents, releasing her 18 hours later. The third confirmed attack occurred on July 3, 1990, in Canterbury, where he subjected a 13-year-old girl to a 50-hour ordeal before releasing her. Investigators believe Mr. Cruel may have recorded his crimes. Victims described being leashed to a bed, and some noted hearing planes during their captivity, leading police to theorize that the house may have been near a flight path to Melbourne Airport. In May 1991, the Spectrum Task Force was established to apprehend Mr. Cruel, conducting extensive searches and interviews, and spending 3.8 million Australian dollars, or 2.5 million US. Despite their efforts, by January 1994, the task force was disbanded, leaving this unforgettable police sketch of Mr. Cruel as a chilling reminder of the crimes that the community still deals with to this day. Each year, the Mekong River becomes the stage for a captivating phenomenon known as the Naga fireballs. These glowing orbs, sometimes called Mekong lights, are said to rise naturally from the river's depths, enchanting both locals and visitors. Described as reddish and varying in size, from tiny sparkles to basketballs, the fireballs soar hundreds of meters into the night sky before vanishing. Reports indicate that anywhere from a few dozen to several thousand fireballs can be seen in a single night, typically around Wan Ok Phansa, marking the end of Buddhist Lent in late October. Most frequently observed in a 250-kilometer stretch of the Mekong River near Phon Phisai, Naga fireballs have also been spotted rising from smaller rivers and lakes in the region. Until the mid-1980s, locals referred to these lights as ghost lights, but the official renaming to Phaya Nak lights added cultural significance to the event. Despite their allure, skeptics have emerged. A 2002 documentary revealed that Lao soldiers fired tracer rounds into the sky during the festival. Skeptic Brian Dunning argued that it would be difficult for spectators across the river to hear the gunshots in time to react to the lights, suggesting flare guns could explain the phenomenon. This theory gained traction when Thai biologist Jasada Denduang Boripant analyzed footage and reached a similar conclusion. Scientific explanations have also been proposed. One theory suggests the fireballs result from flammable phosphine gas generated in the marshy environment. Another hypothesis proposes that they are free-floating plasma orbs created by surface electricity discharges. As the Naga fireballs continue to mystify, they remain a cherished part of local folklore, embodying the intersection of culture, belief, and the allure of the unknown. Whether seen as supernatural or scientifically explainable, they leave a lasting impression on those who witness them with their own eyes. As we wrap up Part 5 of our series of mysterious photos that cannot be explained, we've looked through some of the most puzzling images that continue to intrigue and confound us. From the anonymous figure in the first photograph ever captured to the chilling police sketch of Mr. Cruel, each of these photos tells a story filled with mystery. Each of these images invites us to explore the stories they hold and the questions they leave unanswered. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Fireside Unsolved. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to help the channel grow. Until next time, take it easy and be easy, you filthy bastards.